Single dad accidentally saw his boss topless, but her reaction broke him from inside. Marcus hadn't cried in front of anyone since his wife's funeral 3 years ago. But standing in his boss's doorway at 6:47 a.m., coffee cups trembling in his hands, watching her scramble to cover herself while his 7-year-old daughter peeked around his legs, he felt something inside him finally shatter. Not from embarrassment, not from fear of losing his job, but from the kindness in her eyes when she looked at him and said, "It's okay. You're okay." He was a 34-year-old single father working as a project coordinator at Henderson & Associates, a mid-sized marketing firm in downtown Portland. His days began at 5 in the morning and rarely ended before midnight. Between Emma's school pickups, her dance classes, helping with homework, making meals that weren't just cereal and hope, and trying to prove he deserved his position at work, Marcus lived in a constant state of exhaustion that had become so normal he'd forgotten what rested felt like. His boss, Rebecca Walsh, was everything Marcus aspired to be professionally: composed, brilliant, decisive. She was 42, with silver streaks in her dark hair that she wore like badges of honor, and a reputation for being tough but fair. In the 18 months Marcus had worked under her, she'd never raised her voice, never played favorites, and never tolerated mediocrity. He respected her immensely and feared disappointing her even more. That particular Wednesday morning, Marcus had arrived at the office earlier than usual. Emma had been up half the night with a cough, and rather than leave her with his elderly neighbor Mrs. Chen again, he'd brought her along, planning to let her sleep on the office couch until school started. Rebecca had mentioned she'd be in early to prepare for the Patterson presentation, and Marcus had stopped at the coffee shop to grab her usual order, a small gesture to show his dedication. The office was dark and quiet. Emma dozed against his shoulder as he navigated the hallways toward Rebecca's office. Her door was slightly ajar, a sliver of light spilling into the corridor. He balanced Emma carefully, shifted both coffee cups to one hand, and pushed the door open with his shoulder. The scene unfolded in horrible slow motion. Rebecca stood beside her desk, frozen mid-motion, wearing only dress pants and a bra, her blouse in her hands. Her eyes went wide. Marcus's brain short-circuited. Emma stirred. The coffee cup slipped, splashing lukewarm liquid across the carpet. "Oh my God," Marcus gasped, spinning around so fast he nearly dropped his daughter. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought the door was open, I should have knocked." His heart hammered against his ribs. This was it. This was how he'd lose everything. Sexual harassment claim. Fired for cause. No reference. No way to support Emma. His mind spiraled through catastrophic scenarios in seconds. "Marcus." Rebecca's voice was calm, measured. "Give me 30 seconds. He stood in the hallway, face burning, holding Emma close, whispering apologies to the air. Other employees would start arriving soon. How would this look? He was already the outsider here, the only single parent, the one who sometimes had to leave early for school emergencies, who couldn't attend happy hours or weekend team-building events. "You can turn around now." Rebecca stood in her doorway, fully dressed, her expression unreadable. Marcus couldn't meet her eyes. "I need to explain," he started, words tumbling out frantically. "Emma was sick last night, and I couldn't leave her again, and I wanted to show you the Patterson revisions before the meeting, and I brought coffee because I know you like the Colombian roast, and the door was open, and I'm so incredibly sorry." "Marcus." She held up a hand. "Come into my office. Both of you." This was it. The termination conversation. His mind raced through finances. How long could he make his savings last? Would he lose their apartment? Rebecca closed the door behind them and gestured to the chairs. Emma had woken up fully now, looking between the adults with confused, sleepy eyes. Rebecca crouched down to Emma's level. "Hi there. You must be Emma. Your dad has told me so much about you." Emma nodded shyly, pressing closer to Marcus. Rebecca stood and finally looked directly at Marcus. What he saw in her face wasn't anger or disgust or legal calculations. It was something that looked almost like sorrow. "How long have you been bringing Emma to the office before school?" she asked quietly. Marcus swallowed hard. "This is only the second time. Maybe third. She's been sick, and my neighbor who usually helps, Mrs. Chen, she's getting older, and how many hours of sleep did you get last night?" The question caught him off guard. I don't know. 3, 4. Rebecca moved to her desk and sat on its edge, her posture open rather than defensive. Do you know why my door was open this morning? Why I was changing in my office? Marcus shook his head mutely. I slept here last night. On the couch. She gestured to the leather sofa against the wall, where Marcus now noticed a neatly folded blanket and pillow. I've been doing it twice a week for the past month because my mother has Alzheimer's, and the nights I'm not at her care facility, I'm here, because going home to an empty house where I can still hear her voice from when she lived with me. She paused, her professional composure cracking slightly. It's easier to just stay. Marcus felt his throat tighten. He'd had no idea. I keep a change of clothes here, Rebecca continued. I shower in the executive bathroom. I pretend I'm just very dedicated to my work. And this morning, I thought I was alone, so I got careless with my door. I should have knocked, Marcus whispered. And I should have created a workplace where you feel comfortable telling me when you're struggling. Rebecca's eyes were bright with unshed tears. Do you know what I saw when you pushed that door open? I didn't see an employee violating boundaries. I saw a father holding his sick daughter while bringing his boss coffee at 6 in the morning because he's terrified of being seen as inadequate. Something broke loose in Marcus's chest. The armor he'd been wearing for 3 years, the constant performance of having everything under control, suddenly felt too heavy to hold up anymore. I can't lose this job, he said, and his voice cracked on the words. I can't fail her. He looked down at Emma, who was watching him with her mother's eyes. Rebecca stood and walked to a filing cabinet, pulling out a folder. I'm going to tell you something that should have been said months ago. Your work is exceptional, Marcus. Your Patterson campaign strategy increased client engagement by 43%. Your team consistently rates you as their favorite collaborator. And the fact that you're doing all of this while raising a daughter alone. That doesn't make you a liability. It makes you remarkable. Tears were streaming down Marcus's face now, silent and hot. Emma wrapped her small arms around his neck. Here's what's going to happen, Rebecca said, her voice firm but gentle. We're going to implement flexible work-from-home options for our team. We're going to create an office parents network. And we're going to establish an emergency childcare fund for situations exactly like this. I should have done this before. I'm sorry it took seeing my own vulnerability reflected in someone else to realize how many of us are barely holding it together. You don't have to, Marcus started. Yes, I do. Because kindness isn't a weakness in the workplace. It's the foundation of a team that actually functions like human beings. She pulled out a tissue box and handed it to him without ceremony. You're not in trouble, Marcus. You never were. I'm just sorry that our culture made you afraid to ask for help. They sat in silence for a moment, two people who'd been pretending to be invincible, finally acknowledging their shared humanity. Can I ask you something? Marcus said finally. Rebecca nodded. Why are you being so kind about this? She smiled sadly. Because 3 years ago, someone saw me crying in a parking garage after my mother's diagnosis, and instead of looking away, they sat with me until I could breathe again. That person taught me that the strongest thing we can do is be honest about when we're breaking. I'm just passing it forward. Emma tugged on Marcus's sleeve. Daddy, is the nice lady your friend now? Rebecca laughed, a real laugh that transformed her face. I'd like to be, if that's okay with you. As they cleaned up the spilled coffee together and Rebecca called her assistant to postpone the morning meeting, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in years, the burden of doing everything alone lifting slightly. Not gone entirely, but shared. Lighter. Later that day, Rebecca would announce new family-friendly policies to the entire company. 3 other employees would quietly come forward about their own struggles with childcare and elder care. The office culture would shift gradually, becoming a place where humanity was valued alongside productivity. But in that moment, in the early morning light of Rebecca's office, with his daughter dozing in his lap and his boss sitting across from him with coffee-stained papers, Marcus learned the most important lesson: vulnerability isn't weakness. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is let someone see us as we truly are. And sometimes, just sometimes, they'll respond with the exact grace we needed all along.